So basically, we provide 4 services globally, and these are our core services. We have a very strong audit team globally, which does statutory audits, audits of donor-funded projects, other special purpose audits, and so on and so forth. We also have a very strong tax department, which provides a full range of tax compliance services, tax advisory services, tax audits and health checks, transfer pricing, employment tax and expatriate tax planning, tax opinions, and uh, we also help our clients when they have disputes with KRA, and we've got a good, strong track record in this area. And then we provide business services and outsourcing, which is basically things that our clients don't want to keep in-house, like if they want to outsource their accounting and bookkeeping, we can do that for them. Compilation of their annually statutory reports and even management reports. We provide financial management services and also fiscal management services. You can outsource your payroll to us. You can outsource your company secretarial services to us. You can outsource other admin services. You can also outsource legal services to us. So there's a whole department that does this on a full-time basis. And then where I sit, which is advisory services, basically we provide internal audit and risk management, management consulting, corporate recovery or business turnaround services, corporate finance and transaction advisory services, forensic investigations, including financial fraud and also fraud prevention, and then technology advisory services such as cybersecurity, like the one we're doing today, business intelligence services, data privacy services, as well as ESG services. Next slide, Meha. So basically, let's now turn our focus to today's webinar, which is improving cyber security cost effectively. Like I mentioned, this session is the grand finale of our 5-part series. So I'm hoping you've all been with us in the 5-part series journey. If you've missed any, by the way, you can find them on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and you simply type BDO East Africa, you'll come across our YouTube channel and you will find the webinar recordings from the last 2 years, all the current ones, you'll find them there. There's nearly 50 or 60 webinar recordings. So we're extremely active in this area, and we're proud of being market leaders when it comes to providing free training to our clients. So this particular series, the 5 series, it's focused on leveraging technology for business growth. We've focused on fortifying your defenses against cyber threats. And I'm really happy to see many of you have joined us today as well to conclude this very insightful series. So let me just do a quick recap. We kicked off our series with the exploration of cyber threats facing non-profits in the first webinar, which was, is your non-profit prepared for a cyber attack? And then in our second webinar, we did a deep dive into a webinar called Proactive Cybersecurity Management with Payment Card Industry Compliance. And then we had our third webinar session, which was on the intersection of e-discovery and cybersecurity, what businesses should know. And this, we delved into the critical synergy between IT, cybersecurity, and e-discovery, and we highlighted their impact on today's businesses and the importance of managing these elements to protect digital assets and ensure compliance. And then in our last webinar series, the fourth one, we talked about unlocking the power of cloud ERP for organizational growth and organizational success. Then we explored how cloud ERP can transform your business operations by offering scalability, flexibility, and real-time data insights, thereby enhancing your agility, your efficiency, and also your ability to innovate. So today, as we wrap up this series, we will focus on a crucial aspect of the digital world, which is cybersecurity. And this is often seen as a significant financial burden, but we aim to dispel this notion that this is actually a burden, and we want to show clearly that effective cybersecurity can be both impactful as well as cost effective. So, our expert panelist, Paul Macharia, my good friend, will guide us through several key areas such as risk based approach, technology optimization, security awareness and training, and vendor management and outsourcing. And let me just say one or two words about this. Risk-based approach, we will discuss how to prioritize cybersecurity investments based on risk assessments to focus resources where they can have the most significant impact. And then for technology optimizations, we are going to discover how leveraging technologies such as automation, AI, and machine learning can enhance threat detection and incident response without breaking the bank. And then for when we talk about security awareness and training, we will explain the critical role of fostering a cybersecurity aware culture within your organization and implementing effective training programs. And then we'll also cover vendor management on outsourcing. And here we're going to learn from Paul strategies for managing cybersecurity risks associated with third-party vendors and how outsourcing can augment internal capabilities whilst controlling costs. So our goal today is not only to provide you with actionable strategies to enhance your cybersecurity posture in a cost-effective manner, but also to reflect on the insights that we've gained throughout our previous webinar series. This session is very specifically designed to equip you with the knowledge and tools necessary to navigate this complex landscape of IT security and also technology-enabled business processes in an effective way. So I'd like to thank all of you for your commitment to advancing your knowledge with us. For those of you who've attended all 5, well done. We're happy to give you 5 stars. And without further ado, let's dive into today's session and make the most of our time together. Over to you, Paul.
Right. Thank you, Zahir. So today we will focus our webinar on how to enhance cybersecurity both effectively and efficiently. We will highlight various cybersecurity statistics, focusing on why cybersecurity should be paramount in your organization or any organization as long as it has a digital footprint and a digital presence. We'll then look at some case studies of companies who basically suffered varied types of cybersecurity incidents and how they managed to overcome this without having to necessarily break the bank. We will also look at the challenges organizations face while dealing with cybersecurity incidents and summarize some of the effective solutions that you can incorporate without having to break the bank. Let's just get into it. So why our webinar today focused on cost optimization? So in today's digital age, cybersecurity is more critical than ever. Cyber threats will continue to evolve, posing significant risks to organizations of all sizes and industries. Without the adequate cybersecurity measures, businesses are vulnerable to data breaches, financial losses, and reputational damage. We'll also look at, we also focused our webinar today because of the growing threat landscape. So cyber attacks have become increasingly sophisticated and are becoming more frequent, such as malware, phishing scams, ransomware, and insider threats. In our series, we've covered a lot on the types of cyber attacks that you may face. And we also looked at some high-profile breaches, which serve as stark reminders of the importance of cybersecurity practices. We also focused on our webinar today because of the rising cost of cybercrime. So cybercrime exacts a heavy toll on organizations, both financially and operationally. The average cost of a data breach continues to rise, encompassing both the direct financial losses, regulatory fines, legal fees, reputational damage, and many others that we will look into as part of this webinar. So what are some of the roles of cybersecurity? So, as I've mentioned, cybersecurity encompasses a range of practices, technologies, and processes which are designed to protect your digital assets from unauthorized access, theft, or even damage. It involves safeguarding data, networks, systems, and applications from cyber threats. And it also involves effective and business continuity, protecting your sensitive information, as well as preserving customer trust. Cybersecurity is no longer a peripheral concern, but a crisis and a critical business imperative. There are some number of roles that we've highlighted, and we'll start off with protecting digital assets. So the role of cybersecurity in protecting digital assets is to ensure that customer data, financial records, all of which are integral to an organization, are free from cyber criminals. Cybersecurity ensures that the integrity and confidentiality of these assets by implementing robust security measures such as encryption, access control, threat detection systems. Organizations can then safeguard their digital assets from unauthorized access or even manipulation. It is important to also maintain customer trust. Customer trust is foundational to business success and hinges on the assurance of data protection. Breaches that compromise customer data can erode absolute trust and tarnish the reputation of any organization. And thus, this leads to loss of customers, revenue, and also market share. It is important to ensure business continuity because cyber attacks can disrupt business operations, resulting in financial losses and also reputational damage. It is also important to note that you enforce cybersecurity so as to meet some regulatory requirements. Regulations such as the Kenya Data Protection Act, GDPR on a larger extent, and any other data security and protection laws impose high requirements for the secure handling, storage, and transmission of personal data. And there are severe penalties for non-compliance. We will be covering this more in our next series, which we will introduce later in this presentation. On the front of managing reputational risks, cybersecurity plays a critical role in mitigating reputational risks associated with breaches. To avoid being in the news due to a cybersecurity breach, you need to enforce strong cybersecurity practices so as to bolster your reputation and credibility. And you can also brag that you have never been a victim of a cyber attack. It is important to prevent financial losses, protect intellectual property, such as the data itself, and also because most of your intellectual property, if it falls to a competitor, it may lead to a loss in the competitive advantage, loss of market share, damage, and also loss of innovation property. It is also important to prevent disruption to critical infrastructure. And there are cyber attacks that target critical infrastructure. For example, the power grids, the transportation systems, healthcare facilities, and all this pose both public safety and also a national security issue. Finally, it's to foster trust and confidence, as well as supporting business growth and innovation. Effective cybersecurity risk management enables organizations to pursue growth opportunities and innovation because they have more money in their bank. Prioritizing cybersecurity safeguards for organizations is important, and all organizations should allocate resources to cybersecurity initiatives And this includes technology investment, employee training, and having robust security awareness programs. On the front of the growing threat landscape, as we all know that there's been an increase in the frequency of attacks, and this is because of the proliferation of digital technologies and the interconnectedness of systems and devices. Therefore, attackers are exploiting vulnerabilities in networks, software, and or hardware so as to gain access and also steal any information and in worst case scenarios, disrupt operations. We have also noted a sophistication in the cyber threats. This is because attackers are now using advanced techniques, which ideally would not be noted in advance, and they continuously evolve their ways so as to bypass security controls, evade detection, and also delete all their logs of any activity, therefore not giving you an ability to assess what really happened. There has been an expanded attack surface. This is because of the interconnectivity and the ability to access various resources across many devices. It has also been proliferated by the Internet of Things, the IoTs, as well as the emerging technologies. Organizations must not only secure their traditional IT infrastructure, but also their cloud-based services, mobile apps, as well as the IoT devices. We've seen an increase in a target of supply chains. So cyber attackers are increasingly targeting supply chains to compromise trusted partners and suppliers as a means of gaining access. There is a current ransomware epidemic that has been running for the last 8 to 10 years. And ransomware attacks have emerged as a significant security threat, with cyber criminals using ransomware to encrypt data and extort money from their victims. The proliferation of ransomware as a service has created a business line for attackers, and also the anonymity that has been provided by cryptocurrencies has fueled the growth of ransomware epidemic, making it a lucrative business for cybersecurity, cyber criminals. There is also the rise of the nations and state-based cyber attacks, which are cyber attacks which are state-sponsored, and these hacking groups pose a significant threat to both national security and also the global stability. There's been an increase in the exploitation of zero-day vulnerabilities, which are unknown security flaws in software or hardware, which are yet to be detected and they have already been deployed. And therefore, attackers are using these zero-day vulnerabilities more than they used to before. There is the biggest risk of all, which is the emergence of insider threats. So this includes the malicious insiders. These are your employees. It also could include negligent employees, and this is now becoming a big concern for almost all organizations because it allows attackers to bypass the traditional security controls, and this results into a lot of data breaches. A big talking point is the weaponization of AI and machine learning, where cyber attackers are now leveraging on artificial intelligence. For example, when ChatGPT came out, almost immediately HackGPT also came out. And HackGPT is just one of the many examples where anyone who does not have any programming or networking skills can leverage on AI to assist them to perform an attack. And these technologies have enhanced the sophistication and effectiveness of these attacks. AI-powered cyber attacks, which some are like AI-generated phishing emails, automated malware variants. This usually evade the traditional security defenses, and they target all their victims with a greater level of precision and efficiency. Last but not least is just the global nature of cyber threats that is no longer confined to just the geographical boundaries, but also has a global impact. The interconnectedness of digital ecosystems such as AWS, Microsoft Cloud, and the borderless nature of internet enable cyber attackers to launch an attack from anywhere in the world, just using a simple VPN. Now let's look at the cost of cybercrime. The cost of cybercrime has escalated, and this has resulted into a lot of financial losses. And this includes both direct costs, which are the remediation expenses and regulatory fines, as well as indirect costs, which is loss of revenue, loss of productivity, and loss of customer trust. There is also the total cost, global cost of cybercrime. So currently, it is estimated that cybercrime is $10 billion industry. So you can imagine that this includes the costs of all cyber attacks, cybersecurity spending, economic losses, and all this are stemming from the disruption of business operations and critical infrastructure. On the side of the average cost of a data breach, over and above the penalties and regulatory fines that an organization may face, we have recently seen a study by the Ponemon Institute that costed an annual cost of a data breach, and this was estimated to be around $3.8 million. This also included costs such as investigation, remediation, notification, as well as indirect costs, which are more or less under the reputational damage. We're seeing industry-specific financial impact. So some industries get targeted more often. And we have statistics from the IBM Security Cost of Data Breach Report, which was developed in 2021, averaged an example from the healthcare industry, where it was estimated that the healthcare industry suffers $7.1 million worth of cyber attacks, which is higher by 70% than the global average. There's a cost of non-compliance, which is ideally the regulations such as GDPR, Kenya Data Protection Act, and the various protection acts within the continent and the world. The Health Information Protection Act, that's the HIPAA, and this can result into significant penalties and expose an organization to lawsuits, and also the most important thing, reputational damage. So let's look at some of the prevailing statistics that come from this research. So we noted that there are more low revenue organizations are losing resiliency than they are gaining it. And this is a study that was conducted between 2022 and 2024, whereas the more high revenue organizations are maturing into leaders into cyber resilience. So the high revenue earners, such as banks, have already extended, because of their higher purchasing power, they are more cyber resilient than other organizations who would probably not have enough money to spend on the type of cybersecurity measures that a bank would have. We had a review of a survey that was cast on cyber resilience, which was asked to C-suite. And the question was if they have visibility of their third-party risk. And you could see from the chart on the bottom left corner that most of them lacked visibility of third-party risks. At the top, you can see that in 2024, 2025, and 2026, we're expecting that by 2026, more major global powers, such as the G8 and the G12s, will have cybersecurity as an agenda, and it might be even added into the Geneva Convention. So that is how serious cybersecurity has evolved over the years. Again, we see from a study that was conducted by World Economic Forum that few business leaders in critical sectors feel confident that they have the talent they need. And the leading cybersecurity opportunities that came up were a total of 663,000 security openings, and a total of 1.12 million were employed into the cybersecurity workforce. And this is a study by Cybersec in June 2023. There's a 3.4 million global shortage of cybersecurity professionals, meaning that out of the 1.12 who are hired, there's still a deficit of over 2 million who still need to be hired to reach the level that the global cyber attacks require. By 2025, lack of talent or human failure will be responsible for over half of the significant cybersecurity events and incidences. We bring it closer home. So in Africa, the cost of crime had already been estimated to be $8.8 trillion in 2024 across the world. And by next year, it will be 2.5% increase, and this will result into a 10 trillion cost of cybercrime. There are certain Africa statistics that I want to point your eyes to. Is that 31% of the surveyed participants by VPN alert in East Africa, and these were organizations came out and said that they had cyber attacks. 72% of African firms also recovered within a few days. And this is an Africa outlook. In 2021, cybercrime emails represented 20 million worth of value that was lost just by cybercrime-based emails. In Africa, Egypt was the most targeted region, and this was because of the crisis ransomware, which had started in Q1 of 2021 and continued on for almost 6 months. So these are just some of the statistics that we obtained from VPN Alert and also from the World Economic Forum report of 2024. When we bring it closer home, the losses are estimated to be 10.5 trillion in 2025, of which 10 billion will affect Africa. Kenya by itself would face well over $383 million worth of cybercrime incidents, and this was in 2023. The cyber threat landscape roundup, this is from the National CIRCC, which is the Communications Authority of Kenya, noted that there were a total of 971 million cyber threats that were detected in the quarter. This is quarter 1 of 2024. This is January to March. And this was a decrease in 24.83. So the decrease can also be alluded to the fact that some of these have not been detected because of the evolving and emerging technologies such as AI and machine learning. However, there was an increase of 5% in the threat advisories that were issued by Communications Authority within the same period. I will also turn your eyes to a survey that was conducted by V, and this is a 2024 Data Protection Trends Report, where the question was, over the past 2 years, what were the most common cases of the outages that your organization experienced, and which one was most impactful in 2021, 2022, and 2023 separately? You would see that cybersecurity events are leading with 40% of all cases, and this means that they have increased, or they are higher, and this is the most impactful threat of 2023. This was followed by infrastructure and network outage, then storage hardware outage, as well as application software outage, which followed thereafter. Another survey that was conducted by the World Economic Forum as part of their cybersecurity report of 2023 asked that what were your highest barriers to cybersecurity resilience. So the beauty about this is it separated the cyber leaders from the business leaders, because as most organizations, or in most organizations, you hear that the business leaders always say that IT is more of a cost than it is a benefit. And that's why you can see that it is a bit skewed towards what the business leaders think about cybersecurity not exceeding the investment cost. And this is the lowest bit, where 1% of cyber leaders agreed, but 17% of the business leaders agreed. One place they had the same result was under the resources and skill gaps. And this is also evident from other sources and other studies that show that there's a deficit, a global deficit of over 2 million cybersecurity professionals. These are just but some of the various reports that we've reviewed to showcase to you. And we urge you to get a hold of these reports and read through them thoroughly to further understand. So overall, all standards demand a certain level and with regards to the principles of cybersecurity. So we came up with the 10 cybersecurity defenses, which are having strong passwords, and this is purely to enhance authentication, always keeping your systems up to date, and this is to ensure that you counter any patch vulnerabilities and zero-day attacks, ensuring that you have multi-factor authentication on all platforms. This is to add various layers of security. Perform employee training to boost awareness. Ensure that your networks are secure and segregated. This is to ensure that you have the ability to isolate any foreign traffic. Firewall protection was paramount, and this is purely to block intrusions. Number 7 was data encryption, so as to safeguard your information. Number 8 was incident response and having an incident response plan to give you the ability to have swift action to counter a cyber event. Number 9, which is very important, is to perform regular security audits. And this is to ensure that you continuously assess the weaknesses in your environment. And number 10 was to always have your backups ready and tested to ensure business resilience in the event of a ransomware attack. So these are the current cybersecurity challenges that almost all organizations are facing. There's the threat of advanced persistent threats, which are known as APTs. There's also insider threats, the ransomware epidemic, the cloud security challenges, and this is because organizations are forgetting to secure their cloud environments because they fully outsource that to a third party and they rely solely on the third party's ability to secure the environment. We've talked about the Internet of Things. There's also the cybersecurity skills shortages, the data privacy compliance, and also the hybrid workforce security. So recently, we noted just after the COVID pandemic that there was a shift towards remote and hybrid work models. But in 2024, studies are showing that more people are going back to the office, not only from a productivity perspective, but also from a security perspective, because it is becoming very difficult to safeguard your resources when they're not within your reach. So addressing all these cybersecurity challenges requires not only one approach, but a multifaceted approach which touches on people, processes, and technology, and collaboration with other organizations, having an information sharing platform within your country where you report the incidences will help build cyber resilience and also reduce the growth of cyber events. With regards to some case studies, we have a few global-based case studies, and one of them is Maersk Line, which is a shipping and logistics company. And this is one of the world's largest container shipping company, and they fell victim to the NotPetya ransomware attack in 2023, which crippled its global operations and resulted into significant financial losses. So what Maersk did following the cyber attack is they implemented comprehensive cybersecurity strategy, which primarily focused on enhancing resilience and response capabilities. They invested in advanced security technologies such as EDRs, which are the endpoint detection and response, threat intelligence platforms, and also having security analytic tools. They conducted employee training and awareness programs to educate staff because the attack targeted both the business resilience side as well as the workforce. A second case study is Equifax, which is a financial services company that deals with credit reporting. And in 2017, Equifax, which is one of the largest credit reporting agencies in the North American region, suffered a massive data breach that exposed personal information of millions of customers, and this included names, social security numbers, as well as credit card details. So following the data breach, Equifax undertook a major security overhaul, and they implemented controls such as MFA for all systems and not just the sensitive systems. They enhanced their encryption protocols and also improved their threat detection and response capabilities. Lockheed Martin, which is an aerospace and defense contractor, very big in America, and they suffered a significant data breach as well as a multi-layered cybersecurity attack, which attacked various types of technologies. This is including their fighter jets as well as their systems which had been used to detect radar systems. So what happened with Lockheed? They collaborated closely with the government agencies. These are the FBI's, CIAs, etc. They also collaborated with industry partners, the cybersecurity vendors in the market, just to exchange threat intelligence and develop best practices to enhance the collective defense capabilities. Because in their case, the attack actually came from a third party. This Target, which is a retail company in America, in 2013, the Target was a victim of one of the biggest data breaches, and this was as a result of attackers targeting their POS systems, no pun intended. So following the data breach, they had to make significant improvements, and they had to spend a lot because they had so many other branches, and they had to completely overhaul their POS systems. And they also included data encryption for data at rest and also data in transit, so as to reduce or enhance their capabilities and reduce the ability for any attacks to get into their data. Home Depot, and this is 2017, and they were a victim of a cyber attack, again, through the POS systems. And this resulted into high regulatory fines, a lot of financial loss, and also it was a damage to the company's reputation. Last but not least is Sony. And in 2018, Sony suffered a devastating cyber attack, and this resulted into the theft of corporate information. This is sensitive corporate information, including emails, financial data. And in 2014, if you could recall, they also suffered a cyber breach that resulted into releasing of an unreleased film. And the attack, which was perpetrated by the group known as the Guardians of Peace, caused significant damage, and the one movie loss, which was X-Men, resulted into a $2 million loss within the first opening week. Right. Let's look at let's bring it closer home. Let's look at some case studies here in Kenya and in Africa. So one of the most targeted businesses by cyber criminals in Kenya is Safaricom, and they report at least 1 million attempts to access their systems every single month. So Safaricom has invested in next generation cybersecurity technologies, and they've employed various security measures across all their platforms. They also collaborate with government agencies such as Communications Authority, industry partners, as well as a lot of cybersecurity experts to share threat intelligence. Another way Safaricom has done this is by recruiting a workforce of cybersecurity professionals and ensuring that all professionals or all staff are fully trained on a quarterly basis with regards to cybersecurity, the measures, and also how to detect cybersecurity and report it. NASPAS is a company in South Africa that deals with technology and media, and it's a multinational technology and media company that operates a diverse portfolio of digital platforms, and this include e-commerce platforms, online classifieds, as well as video streaming. So they suffered various attacks in 2022, and this led to disruption of operations and also compromised user privacy. African Development Bank, and by extension, the Africa Development Fund. This is a multinational and a multilateral development financial institution that ensures the integrity and development of projects across Africa. So AFDB was subject to various attacks that resulted into disruption of operations, and this also undermined the trust in the institution's capability to oversee a smarter, better Africa banking platform. First Bank is a bank in Nigeria, and this is one of the largest financial institutions in Nigeria and also the first bank of Nigeria. And they faced cybersecurity challenges with regards to protecting customer information after the implementation of the Data Protection Act within their country. KenGen is also, for those who are tuning in from Kenya, is the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, and this is an energy and utilities company, and is the leader, or it's ideally the sole producer of an electricity from the hydroelectric dams, and they suffered significant cyber threats with regards to their critical infrastructure and operational technology. And KenGen has since prioritized cybersecurity, which is not their primary role or their primary day-to-day business. They implemented a 2021 to 2027 cybersecurity strategy with comprehensive cybersecurity programs to protect the power generation facilities and the power distribution facilities. Last but not least is InterSwitch Group, which is a financial technology company in Nigeria. And fintechs are, after telecommunications industry, fintechs are the second most targeted platforms in Africa, for the purpose that most of them are usually startups and could not afford the robust cybersecurity measures that more developed banks could probably have a war chest to ensure that their systems are secure. So what do we learn from all these case studies all put together? That all these organizations implemented advanced security technologies. So this include encryption, biometric authentication, as well as having threat detection systems to safeguard their digital assets. All these organizations focused their efforts towards employee training and awareness. And this is the second takeaway. And number 3 is collaboration with industry partners. This includes the government agencies, cybersecurity experts, and also the standard setters who have the best practices just to collaborate an approach towards cybersecurity. They all deployed multi-layered security controls, and this is from an application layer to a network layer, and this includes encryption, access controls, transaction monitoring, so as to ensure that cyber threats were kept at bay. All of them implemented continuous security monitoring, and this is evidenced in security information and event management, which is CM systems, so as to boost their capabilities towards threat intelligence and detection of threats on a real-time basis. All these companies invested in cybersecurity talent. So in the example of KenGen, who are more or less an electricity in the electricity and energy sector, they did focus a big chunk of their budget towards obtaining cybersecurity talent. All of these companies had to redevise their cybersecurity policies, also their governance frameworks. They all had to implement robust technical security controls, as well as capacity building and building awareness within the organization. Last but not least, that is not mentioned here directly, is the procurement of cyber insurance. And cyber insurance is also known as cybersecurity insurance, or the cyber liability cover, which is designed to protect businesses and individuals from financial losses and liabilities resulting from cyber-related incidents. And this may include data breaches, cyber attacks, ransomware, network outages, as well as other breaches. And this is evident in the Sony case, which started in 2014 and a second incident in 2017. So before you implement your cybersecurity solution, there are 10 questions that you need to ask yourself. And these are: one, what are your critical assets and data? Before you make an investment which would lead to an expense, is you have to first identify your critical assets and your critical data. Once you have done and you've identified the critical assets, you then move towards prioritizing the protection efforts. An example is a company that decides to put access control, physical access control within their building without having to safeguard the data center itself. So you're locking one door, but you're leaving the other door open. The critical asset would have been the data center and not necessarily the entrance to the building. Number two is, what are the current cybersecurity threats that our organization is facing? So each and every industry is facing its own type of major cybersecurity threat. If you're in banking, you know that it is customer data. If you're in supply chain, you know that it's the disruption of flow of goods from one vendor to the other. If you're in medical, you know, again, it's all about customer data. So you first need to assess your own organization before you decide to implement a solution, which would then cost you more to realign or re-implement a solution that is within your industry and your sector. You also need to ask yourself, number three, what are your compliance requirements? So certain organizations such as banks, because of cardholder data, they have to abide to PCI DSS compliance, and that was part of part two of our webinar series. There are certain other organizations who have to align to data protection acts within their countries, or even just GDPR. If you're in medical, you also need to align to the HIPAA regulations. So before you invest in any cybersecurity solution, you need to first assess your compliance requirements to regulatory obligations and align with the requirements beforehand, before you can then budget for other solutions. Number four is, what is our budget and resource allocation for this particular cybersecurity initiatives? So to attain the best value and return on investment within the budget constraints, you need to also prioritize purchases of hardware and software and make the decision that if the long run of 5 years of buying a physical server, which you have to safeguard more and you'll end up replacing it, or consider moving your business platforms to the cloud, where you have less headache, you don't have to employ a lot of people to manage it, and therefore you end up saving cost. And this was covered in part 4 of this webinar series. So number 5 is, what are your organization's specific cybersecurity goals and objectives? So if you are in the networks, if your organization specific cybersecurity goal is to safeguard the network, then you need to focus all your energies towards ensuring that your network is safe, because your applications will therefore be safe. What is our risk tolerance and appetite for cybersecurity incidents? So you need to also assess within your company how you what is your risk appetite, in the sense that if you are to suffer potential financial losses, then you need to increase your appetite and increase your cybersecurity solutions. If you have fewer transactions or they are low impact, low risk, high impact environment, then you need to also still consider what would be the cybersecurity solutions that you would want to deploy within your organization. Number 7 is the level of user awareness and training within the organization. So you need to assess the level of cybersecurity awareness training amongst your employees, your contractors, stakeholders, so as to identify any gaps and areas of improvement. And because human factor is the highest indicator or the highest instigator of cyber attacks. Number 8 is what internal expertise and external support do we currently have for our current cybersecurity initiatives. So assessing your IT security staff, your cybersecurity analysts, incident response teams, as well as the external support that you receive from the vendors that you have outsourced some services to. And you can also leverage on consultants or consultant firms and industry partners to support your cybersecurity initiatives collectively. Number 9 is how will cybersecurity solutions integrate with the existing IT infrastructure and systems. And this is very critical because compatibility and interoperability of the cybersecurity solutions that you have must gel and blend with your existing infrastructure, your networks, so as to ensure that you do not end up spending so much money to overhaul one side because of cybersecurity. So a good example is a Fortinet-based environment where if you are running on Cisco routers, you do know that if you're going to purchase a Fortinet firewall, you cannot run it on routers which are not Fortinet supplied. So then you would end up spending so much more on a particular firewall because you need to overhaul the existing infrastructure because of non-compatibility. Whereas if you went for a Cisco-based firewall and you already have Cisco-based routers, then the two technologies would gel and you'd still achieve the same outcome, which is to safeguard the network. Number 10 is very important, is what are the scalability and future-proofing requirements for cybersecurity solutions? So you need to first anticipate future growth to your organization, where you actually want to be with regards to your strategy, before you then decide what cybersecurity appliances or even methods that you can employ. So for example, is again, firewalls. You purchase a firewall with only license capability of 25 users, but you expect to grow your organization tenfold from 5 to maybe 50 employees within current fiscal year. So if you purchase your firewall today, by the end of next year, that firewall will not be useful to you. You'll need to upgrade to align to your business scalability. So these are the 10 most important questions, which would save you a lot of costs if you answered them correctly to ensure that all the cybersecurity requirements are met. So these are the best practices for cybersecurity implementation. Number 1 is risk assessment and prioritization. You need to conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to identify and prioritize your cybersecurity risks based on their potential impact and likelihood. And then you must focus on protecting those critical assets first and those which are most valuable to your organization. Number 2 is conduct cybersecurity awareness training. And you need to conduct regular cybersecurity awareness training to all employees to educate them about common cyber threats, phishing scams, and always keeping them abreast with the best practices for maintaining security. You need to ensure that all your systems, software updates are up to date, and you need to have patch management policies and procedures to ensure you have robust patch management within your organization. And this is to counter against zero-day vulnerabilities, and also just making sure that you already know what vulnerabilities are being fixed by various patches to mitigate risks against exploitation by cyber attackers. Very important is to segment your network. So you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You need to implement network segmentation to isolate the sensitive systems and data into a from a less secure network into a more safeguarded network. So if you have only one subnet, or you're only deploying one environment for both your employees and also for your guests, you need to separate those two networks and only have routing IP for internet only access on one side of the guest network, and then prioritize traffic for the business operations and prioritize security for the business operations side. You can also leverage on open source and free tools. So you don't have to break the bank to get the best in class vulnerability assessment tools. You can leverage on open source and free cybersecurity tools, which augment into your security capabilities without having to incur any additional costs. There are very many reputable open source solutions, which I won't mention in this particular webinar. I have mentioned about the cloud-based security solutions, and we discussed this in our previous webinar, and this is to leverage on cloud-based antivirus, firewalls, and threat intelligence platforms, which often offer a cost-effective solution and a subscription model, and eliminate the need for on-premise hardware, which would become obsolete within a very short period of time. There's also the aspect of outsourcing security services, where you decide to outsource certain cybersecurity services, such as the managed security services, or have a security as a service, SecSaaS, as service that you've employed, because you don't want to have to employ many cybersecurity professionals to reduce cost. So if you evaluate that you probably need 10 professionals and you can outsource the entire, who maybe would cost you upwards of 3 million shillings, equivalent of $30,000 per month, whereas you would get an external provider to provide the same particular service at, let's say, 1 million shillings or $10,000 average per month, then that would save you a clean $10,000 every single month. And if you progress that over a period of 5 years, then it gives you the numbers that you would be saving. You need to prioritize incident response planning, and this is with regards to how you respond to an incident and how you recover from a cybersecurity incident. And having a strategy in place would minimize the impact of security breaches. Perform regular security audits and assessments. So conducting regular security audits, vulnerability assessments, penetration tests will help you identify weaknesses and gaps in your cybersecurity defenses that you've already implemented, and it will help you in addressing them proactively to prevent costly data breaches which come from security incidents. Last but not least, is to ensure that you always have continuous monitoring and threat intelligence on a real-time basis. And you can leverage on AI-based tools or machine learning tools, which would then protect you when you're not at your workstation or you're not during your business hours. Because as we all know, most attacks happen over the weekends or outside business hours, which is in the wee hours of the night, where no one is actually watching. So implementing an AI-based tool for security would help you or your organization minimize these threats and also counter against these threats when you're not within the office. We've looked at all the measures that you need to do. Now you need to measure your cybersecurity effectiveness so as to ensure that you're meeting various thresholds with regards to return on investment. So there's 6 strategies with regards to measuring cybersecurity efficiency or effectiveness, is to have and establish clear KPIs, measure effectiveness of your cybersecurity program. And these goals should align with your objectives, such as reducing the number of security incidents from 10 10 million security events per month to around 5 million within the next year. And this can be evidenced from the Communications Authority CIRCC report. You need to also establish and define your specific security metrics so as to track the performance of these controls. And examples include how many vulnerabilities have we patched in this application or in this equipment? What is the percentage of employees that are completing the cybersecurity training and the time it is taking to detect and remediate cybersecurity incidents? This could be security metrics that you can enforce onto your cybersecurity professionals so that they can actively track and keep improving on the metrics themselves. You need to also put in place incident response metrics. And these are metrics that measure the efficiency and effectiveness of your incident response processes. And they track two things, which is the mean time to detect and the mean time to respond, as well as finally the mean time to recover. So these metrics will help you assess the organization's ability to detect, contain, and then thereafter recover from a security incident. And this would guide you towards your investment in technology. So if a cyber event cost you 10 million shillings because it took 5 days to basically recover from the incident, then you need first on the security metrics side to set that any incident we should recover within 48 hours, and then you reinvest any within your technology, you assess and invest further to bring down that time. With regards to the risk reduction metrics, you need to evaluate the impact of cybersecurity efforts on reducing the overall risk exposure by tracking metrics such as risk assessment scores, risk treatment effectiveness, and this is found in your risk registers. You also need to ensure that you have continuous improvement. So just because you've not suffered any cyber incidents or cyber threats or attacks does not mean that you should then not improve and move on with the flow. As we mentioned earlier, there is the emergence of AI and ML on a hacking platform, and this would not be detected. So if you have technologies which existed pre-AI and pre-ML, the big jump, then almost all your technologies and all your systems and all your data would be vulnerable. So it's time to recap webinar, and these are the key takeaways. So we have provided valuable insights and practical solutions to help organizations enhance their cybersecurity posture while still managing the costs. In this session, we have also explored strategies and best practices for cost-effective cybersecurity management. And the 10 points that we want you to take away for any organization is: number one, you need to adopt a risk-based threat exposure management framework to guide your cybersecurity investment prioritization. You need to also simplify cybersecurity management by adopting a unified single view and consolidated platform. You need to build and enhance identity threat and detection response capabilities within your networks, databases, applications. You can then consider outsourcing security services, or even what we call everything as a service or anything as a service, if the OPEX based on the product offerings can reduce the overall cost of the technology acquisition and maintenance. You have to implement continuous and real-time cybersecurity controls, validation, and visibility to counter against out-of-business attacks and zero-day attacks. You need to position cybersecurity as a business value and a creation driver within your internal teams to boost business. You need to adopt a human-centric cybersecurity design to address the distributed working considerations within any organization, and this can only be done through training. You also need to enhance board-level cybersecurity competencies and oversight capabilities. This is because the board in most organizations would hold the organization heads or the business leaders accountable. And if you do not have a cyber proficient or a cyber aware board member, then they would never drive any of the initiatives or any of your expense items that you put in your budget. They will never get approved. So you need to also enhance that board level cybersecurity competency so as to improve your oversight capabilities. You also need to decentralize cybersecurity management and also involve the non-technical business departments. This is because most of the business leaders and the business side of things would then appreciate what a cybersecurity event would cost the organization, and they would align themselves with the best practices and would not be breaching any of the policies that you have implemented. Last but not least, you need to embrace the support and embrace and support the design of the deployment of secure architectures. And you can use the existing security approaches. These are the NIST framework, the CISR, the ISO 27001, ISO 27701, ISO 22301, whatever standard that you apply to, you need to embrace it and also support the deployment of that secure architecture within your organization. That brings us to the end of our webinar, and I would like to hand over to Meha
for the
Q&A
session.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you all for joining us here today. We hope you found the strategies and insights shared today both valuable and practical for enhancing your cybersecurity measures cost effectively. Now I'm going to open the floor for questions, so please type in your questions in the Q&A tab, and our panelists will try their best to answer the questions as accurately as possible. So I'll give you guys some time to send in your questions. And in the meantime, I'd also like to take the opportunity to mention that we have a few more webinars planned. I'll talk about the data privacy webinar in the next slide and about the ESG webinar. So while you type your questions in, if you guys have any, I'll send in the registration links. So please do register in advance for the next few webinars. Thank you. So the presentation will be available on our YouTube channel, Video East Africa, and no, unfortunately, we're not able to share the slides. So if there aren't any other questions, we can move on to talk about the new series announcement.
I don't know if the lack of questions is complete. Did I confuse you or did I fix you? So if you do have any questions, please reach out through any of the invites that you received. And I really hope that you gained valuable insight from our webinar. Over to you, Meha.
Thank you, Paul. So this is an announcement of our next series on data protection. As you can see, the first session is on the compliance journey so far, which is on Wednesday, 29th May. I just sent in the registration link on the chat. So please do register in advance as the seats are limited. And then we'll go on to talk about the role of data protection officers in Eastern Africa, and then data protection for small and medium enterprises. And then in August, we'll talk about emerging technologies and data protection. And lastly, we'll end with cross-border data transfer challenges and solutions. So let me check if there are a few questions. So we got one question, which asks, can you share what happened recently in East Africa in terms of the topic we are discussing today?
I'd want more context. I wish you'd mention, because there's been a lot, but I'm hoping you're not talking about the network outage in the last weekend. I think that's what has been in the news a lot. And that was primarily due to some fiber cuts in the undersea cables. It was not a cyber event, but definitely there are so many organizations who may have thought or may have started blaming the fiber cuts and the internet basically outage, and maybe they were undergoing a DDoS attack. So again, with a bit more context, I would be able to respond to your question better.
Thank you, Paul. If the person who asked the question is able to give some more context, please do, and we'll be able to give more accurate answers. And in the meantime, after mentioning the data protection series, I'd also like to mention that the next webinar of the ESG series with BDO India is happening next week. I'm going to send in the registration link on the chat. So please join us as well. It's a very insightful session on ESG practices, and we've got our experts from BDO India to join us. So if there aren't any other questions, I guess we're good to go. And thank you so much for joining us here today. And that's the end of the 5-part series. If you ever want to look back at them, as I mentioned again, go back to our YouTube channel, and the slides and the presentations available there. So please share it with your network and your colleagues. Thank you so much, and hope to see you all next week.